Hi, it's Miss Malcolm, and this is our assignment 5 for science distance learning in 3rd grade. I want to walk you through your assignment and preview some of the questions in case they're tricky to read. Here's our big question that we should be able to answer at the end of these 20 minutes. What are hurricanes and why do they affect some places more than others? This is important to us here in New Orleans because we are really affected by hurricanes. But places like California really are not. Let's figure out why. You'll do your do now, so you make a quick list of 5 natural hazards. That's any kind of danger that comes from nature. You already found the link, that's how you're watching this now. Here are the questions that are going to help you learn. Number 1, you'll type these into the box on the right. Number 1, what kind of water do hurricanes need to form? Number 2, what are the other names people around the world call hurricanes? Here are your choices. You got to pick 2 of them and type them over here. Cyclone, eruption, tidal wave, typhoon, tsunami. Let's see a typo I'm going to fix. Number 3, storms are measured by the speed of their winds. Which one has a faster wind? A tropical depression or a hurricane? Number 4, hurricanes are given human names and are also labeled categories 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. What do scientists use to decide which category a hurricane is? And finally, there's a bonus at the bottom for you who are extra careful listeners. What do the hurricane scientists call Kermit and Miss Piggy? So as you're watching this video today, keep these questions in mind and it'll help you when you get to the next part of the assignment. This video comes from Clarendon Learning, and I thought I did a great job summarizing important parts and facts I needed you to know about hurricanes.
Hurricane alert! Hurricane alert! The National Weather Service has announced a hurricane! Hey kids, if you heard this emergency report on TV or the radio, would you be concerned? Would you be alarmed? What would you do? Would you know what to do? Today, we're talking about the severe weather phenomenon. You know, a giant swirling storm, accompanied by severe thunderstorms, with sustained winds of at least 74 miles per hour. The event we call a hurricane. This kind of storm is known as a typhoon in the Northwest Pacific and called a cyclone in the South Pacific and Indian Oceans. These severe storms go by different names around the world. Each one gets its own name. Have you ever been in a hurricane? Have you ever experienced being in a heavy rainstorm with thunder and lightning? Were you scared? It's okay to be scared in a storm. Severe weather scares us all because it's so unpredictable. Let's learn about how hurricanes are formed. A hurricane in the northern hemisphere generally boils up between the months of June and November. As tropical seawater is heated by the sun, this warming air rises into the atmosphere, forming rain clouds, while down below the warm air is replaced with cooler air, which is warmed and rises. It's like a cycle, and the cycle repeats over again as long as there is a supply of warm seawater. As the clouds cool, rains fall, and winds develop. The earth, as it rotates, causes the storm to spin, and if the resulting circulating winds reach 39 miles per hour, the storm becomes a tropical depression, and the storm gets a name. Tropical storms are tracked very closely by radar until they peter out and die. But if they gain more energy from warm waters, they grow and grow. And if the sustained wind speed reaches 74 miles per hour, bam, a hurricane is born. These massive storms can reach 50,000 feet high and spread out 125 miles in diameter. A hurricane with a name may wander aimlessly out at sea. In the northern hemisphere, they rotate counterclockwise. In the southern hemisphere, They rotate clockwise. Look at the center of the hurricane in this satellite imagery. Can you see the eye of the hurricane? The eye of the hurricane is calm and peaceful, and the skies are clear. In the eye, you might think the storm is over. Oh, but it's not over. It's about to get worse. The eye wall is where the winds are the fastest and the most destructive. We may know a lot about hurricanes, but we still don't know enough. It takes the courageous men and women of NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, to help us learn more. Flying aboard the two powerful Lockheed P-3 Orion airplanes, also known as Kermit and Miss Piggy, these brave scientists, called hurricane hunters, fly into the hurricane. Yep, they fly in and out of the storm, and even through the eye. With special instruments, they collect data to help us learn more about hurricanes. Whoa, that's incredible! Thanks, NOAA! Hopefully, a hurricane dies at sea, but it may wander toward land. Watches and warnings go out to entire regions and states, asking the people to prepare for the coming storm. They may have to leave their homes. A list of names has been established, and they are used on a 6-year rotation. It's important to name these violent storms to avoid confusion. That way, they can be followed. Boys' names and girls' names are used alternately in alphabetical order. And if a hurricane has been especially destructive and loss of life severe, that name is retired. The Saffir-Simpson Hurricane Wind Scale is used to grade the intensity of a hurricane. Let's look at the categories. Category 1. Winds are clocked between 74 and 95 miles per hour and may result in some damage. A Category 2 storm has winds at 96 to 110 miles per hour, and the damage can be expected to be extensive. Category 3 hurricanes are extremely dangerous, and with winds measured from 111 to 129 miles per hour, the damage will be devastating. You can expect extreme damage from a Category 4 hurricane, with winds reaching 156 miles per hour. And with a Category 5 hurricane, the damage is catastrophic, with winds exceeding 157 miles per hour. On September 20th, 2017, a Category 5 hurricane struck the island of Puerto Rico. The damage and loss of life has been devastating. All 3.4 million residents were plunged into a deep crisis. This hurricane was named Maria, and it affected many of the islands of the Caribbean. It will take years for them to recover. Destruction is not only caused from high winds of a hurricane, but also from the tremendous amount of water that comes with it, bringing massive and widespread flooding. The most important thing to do when a hurricane is approaching is to evacuate. Often, local governments have emergency areas to evacuate to and provide shelter until the storm passes. In the year 1900, the unnamed hurricane that struck Galveston, Texas, was the deadliest natural disaster in U.S. history, killing between 6,000 and 12,000 people. Other hurricanes of recent years, which have also left a path of widespread destruction, are Andrew of 1992, which pummeled South Florida and Louisiana. In 2005, Hurricanes Wilma, Rita, and Katrina bowled through the Atlantic Basin, and with a 1-2-3 punch, showed little mercy. And in October of 2018, Hurricane Michael, the first Category 5 hurricane since Andrew, smashed into the Florida Panhandle. This storm also affected Central America, parts of Mexico, and Cuba. And there were billions and billions of dollars in losses to homes and businesses and to roads and bridges. Hurricane Michael was devastating. Although a hurricane begins to lose energy as it makes landfall, the size and strength of even a weakening storm is still enough to cause a lot of grief. Severe tornadoes are also a byproduct of weakening hurricanes. What would you do if you heard the hurricane warning go out? Would you be prepared? And would you be willing to help the countless people and their pets harshly affected by these unforgiving spectacles of nature? If you should ever be in the path of a hurricane, don't panic. Follow the instructions of your local emergency response team and be safe. Be prepared.
This is a world map. We know that we're in the United States. We can always find ourselves by looking for Florida sticking out like so. And we are at the top of this curve that is the Gulf of Mexico of this water. So we're right here. This big red line is called the equator. And the equator basically is an imaginary line that people use to think about the top of the earth and the bottom half of the earth. So it perfectly divides the earth in half. And it's an imaginary line, but the weather around this line all around the world is really similar. It's very hot, and on the places where the equator is over on land where the equator is, it tends to be like what you would imagine as like a deep, dark rainforest. So we have it going through South America here and going across Africa. And then we have the equator cuts right through Indonesia, which is where we know Borneo and Sumatra are, where the orangutans naturally live. So this place is really hot, tends to be places that are really rainy as well. And so hurricanes form over that warm ocean water, 80-degree water. And since this line is consistently hot all across the world, this is the area where hurricanes originally formed. They're over the warm water here, over the warm water in other parts of the world right around the equator. And the way the winds blow in the ocean closest to us, the Atlantic, they kind of blow in this direction. And so we can get hurricanes in Texas and Mexico and these parts of Central America, and so can Florida and all the people living along this coast